inspirational Bible verses to get us started on this day. Mayor Chirko, good morning. And my colleagues, Congressman Foster and Congressman Caston. It's so odd. We're people. Great to be with you all this morning and celebrate the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. On this day especially, it's such a special honor to be here with all the students from North Central College and to speak with you all just like Dr. King did 60 years ago. I'm in awe and so honored to stand before you today, proudly representing the 14th District of Illinois as your Congresswoman and the youngest Black woman to ever be elected to Congress. Congresswoman title. I'm used to being called a nurse or a member of the Obama administration or a healthcare expert, whatever that means, but Congresswoman still feels pretty surreal, but for good reason. From gaveling in of our nation's first constitutional Congress, wealthy, white, male landowners were the only individuals allowed to serve in Congress. And as an elite institution, people like me, young women of color, did not have a voice in that elite institution. And now we have this very small but growing caucus. And I'm honored to do the work on behalf of you and the 720,000 people of the Illinois 14th District. We all grew up hearing the wisdom of Dr. King, and his courageous words seem to always bring hope and the inspiration to reach something greater than ourselves, right? Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. These words from Dr. King have been especially poignant for me recently. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. Faith, he said. And that's what it felt like when I decided to run for office. I could not see the whole staircase. I couldn't even see more than a few steps in front of me. So it took a little faith, well, to be honest, a lot of faith, to take that step. And you all can probably relate to this. Maybe it took a little faith for you to apply to college or to decide to come here to North Central. For others of you to choose maybe that first job outside of college, make decisions about your family, or to roll up your sleeves and get to work in the community. It's all hard. There's no rule book, and you can't usually see the whole staircase ahead. But faith, as Dr. King said, is all about that first step, when you know deep down in your gut that what you're being called to do. And I felt that calling in my gut. It started with marching. Some of you probably were out there marching with me, whether yesterday or a couple years prior with the Women's March. And then I felt frustrated with representation in our district as I watched our healthcare be repeatedly threatened. I have a pre-existing condition, and I spent my career working to expand healthcare coverage around the country. And so it was personal for me. And so when I took that big leap of faith and decided to run for office, it was a long shot. I ran against 6 guys in the Republican primary and then beat a 4-term incumbent in what the Chicago Tribune called a stunning upset. But it's a movement and it's a new day now. But getting elected was really only the start. I realized very quickly that in Congress there's no set path to take or no set staircase, as Dr. King put it. Washington's broken. I don't have to tell you all that. We've watched it play out live for the last 2 years. And just like we've watched elected officials choose partisan politics over the people that they serve. On January 3rd, I was sworn in during a shutdown. Think about it for a second. Our democracy is so divided that it shut itself down, hurting the economy, and worse, hurting hundreds of thousands of Americans who still are working very hard right now, serving the public and protecting our country, even without a paycheck. Prescription drug prices are too high. Working and middle-class families are feeling squeezed. And as so many of you are all too familiar, the college debt crisis is setting up far too many bright young people for financial failure. I hear from our neighbors in the 14th district every day. Hardworking people affected by the shutdown, young people worried about how damaged the environment is, moms and dads who can't afford their kids' health care. And just a week ago, or a few weeks ago, I guess, over the holidays, I heard from a mom in Oswego who was struggling to pay for health care and working hard to provide for her family. She shared that she and her son both had pre-existing conditions, and she didn't qualify for additional assistance to afford her health care premium. And in these cold winter months, her son often complained the house was freezing. But she had to make a choice between health care and heat, and that shouldn't happen in America. No one should have to make that kind of a choice. And so that's just one story, but there are so many more. So much to do, and it can be overwhelming. But Joshua 1:9 says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. And those words have brought me so much comfort in these tumultuous times. Dr. King warned us that sometimes you have to take that step of faith. And then Joshua tells us to be strong and courageous in that step, that God will be with us. And so on January 3rd, we took that first step and made history. And this is just the beginning. I was just at the airport yesterday and ran into my new colleague, John Lewis. And John Lewis often talks about getting into good trouble. And how a little bit of good trouble is just what we need to spur a little progress and maybe to further that first step. And so when we got sworn in, I got right to work making a little bit of good trouble in the Congress. And we voted on a set of rules. So the Congress is this huge institution, and it's not just miraculously governed, right? There's actual rules, and I authored 2 anti-harassment provisions in House Resolution 6, the rules that govern the House of Representatives. And so these 2 policies would be no-brainers in any other institution. But in the Congress, we had to step forward and be bold. And so those institutions really work to limit and ban sexual misconduct and harassment in the Congress. Things that, again, would never be okay and acceptable here at North Central, never be okay and acceptable in any private industry. It's taken some centuries for us to get them on the books in the Congress. My first week proudly signed my name to a sweeping package of pro-democracy reforms and anti-corruption measures that will put power back in the hands of the American people by ending the dominance of big money in politics, making it easier for folks to vote, and ensuring that politicians actually serve the public interest. And before my first week in Congress was up, I took to the House floor to give my first speech. And it was a full-throated defense of the Affordable Care Act and health care coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. We voted in favor of intervening against the monstrous lawsuit that aims to strike down the entirety of that health care law and end its life-saving protections for the nearly 5.5 million Illinoisans with pre-existing conditions. And over the last 2.5 weeks, we've only been there for 2.5 weeks, I voted continually to end this heartless and nonsensical shutdown, but also keeping our eye on the ball, advancing legislation that will improve lives for families like yours and mine right here in Naperville. I co-sponsored legislation that will require a background check for every single firearm sale and raise the age to purchase semi-automatic weapons to 21, protecting young people who are increasingly afraid of experiencing violence in school. I'm working with my colleagues on legislation, the Family Act, that is desperately needed to ease the transition to major life events that we all experience. The Family Act would ensure that workers can take up to 12 weeks of paid leave for a pregnancy, the birth or adoption of a child, to recover from a serious illness, or to care for a family member who's in the midst of an illness. And that's just in 19 days. It's an exciting time to be serving our community, and it's an exciting time to be part of a new day in Washington. I look forward to what's to come ahead. But I hope that you will join me as we all take this leap of faith together in serving our community. Because I'm going to need your help. Our nation and our union is more perfected when we work together for the greater good. Dr. King believed so deeply in that idea of working together for our community, and I believe it too. The only way that we're going to do good work is if we do it together with a little faith along the way. Thank you so much.